Chien EX is expected to be a monster of a deck. A lot of people are really excited about this deck, but should they be? Hey, Nick from 9Card TCG, and today we're going to be looking at a Chien EX deck list. This is an early deck list, so keep in mind that this is just a template. It's a place for you to get started. It's not by any means the perfect or optimal 60. Just like I said, a starting place. So take this with a grain of salt and feel free to update it as you see fit. As you can tell, I sound like garbage. So we're going to do this a little bit differently today, and we're just going to get right into it. I did not feel like making proxies for this deck because I just didn't have the time, and also I feel like garbage. So we're going to start off Chien. What does it do? It is a Pokemon EX. It's a basic Pokemon EX, 220 health, 2 retreat cost, and a metal weakness, which is pretty nice. There's really not a lot of metal running around. It has the ability Trembling Frost. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may search your deck for up to 2 basic water energies, put them into your hand. Really nice. It has the attack Hail Blade for 2 water energies. It does 60 times the number of water energy you discard from your Pokemon. Then the water energies that you discard can come from anywhere. They can be on the active, they can be on the bench, they can be on multiple different Pokemon. You can discard any number of water energies from any Pokemon you want, and you hit for big damage. Now this is a really nice attack because you technically are only limited by the number of energies you can get into play, or the number of energies you have in deck. So we have a stage 2 evolution with the Frigibax, Artibax, and Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur is it has the absolute 0 ability. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic water energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. There is no limit. As often as you like, a water energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. This doesn't even have to be a water Pokemon technically, but we can attach a water Pokemon from our hand to any Pokemon. Benched, active, evolved, basic, non-water, crazy. So we have Chien to go ahead and get the energy, Baxcalibur to put the energy on, and then we can attack with something like the Chien to do big damage. We can go ahead and attack with Suicune because it's just a decent 2-prize attacker, has a good ability, fleet-footed. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may draw a card, and Blizzard Rondo can hit for up to 220 damage. If both you and your opponent have full benches, most decks are going to have full benches, and then Blizzard Rondo doesn't require you to discard any cards, which is kind of nice. So you attack with something like the Chien, you attack with something like Radiant Greninja, because yes, we can use Radiant Greninja's concealed cards to 1, discard a water energy from our hand to draw 2 cards, or 2, we can use Moonlight Shuriken, where we can now discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, and this attack does 90 damage to 2 of our opponent's Pokemon. This is absolutely fantastic. We can power this up in a single turn with the Baxcalibur, which is fantastic. We can go ahead and maybe we don't exactly take the KO with the Chien. Maybe we hit with the Suicune into a Pokemon V. They run onto the bench. Well, now we can go ahead and snipe them with the Radiant Greninja. So now we attack. Energies get discarded, Pokemon get KO'd, we have to discard Pokemon with things like Ultra Ball, whatever. How do we recover those energies? Well, we have Super Rod. Super Rod is, I don't know, it's probably a reprint, right? Super Rod's probably a reprint. Shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energies from your discard pile into your deck, which means we can go ahead, get the energy from the discard, and also say like a Radiant Greninja or a Chien, whatever, maybe some are prized. We get the energy and the Pokemon back into the deck, and then we can use Chien to get them out of the deck into the hand, Baxcalibur from the hand to our Pokemon, attack, repeat. We also have Superior Energy Retrieval. Again, this is another reprint. Discard 2 cards from your hand. If you can't discard 2 cards, you can't play this card, yeah? Put 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. You can't choose a card you discard with the effect of this. So, what that means is, I can't discard 2 water energies from my hand and then use superior energy retrieval to get those 2 energies plus 2 more. So I have to discard whatever I discard. I can't pick up with superior energy retrieval. So keep that in mind. So that's the loop. Now we have superior energy retrieval to get the energies back into our hand, and then we just throw them onto the field with Baxcalibur, which is absolutely incredible. We can get 5 energies in a single turn. That's enough to power up 2 Chien Pows and a Manaphy, I guess, if you wanted to. Yes, we have Manaphy for the Wave Veil ability. Prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon from attacks of your opponent's Pokemon. The rest of our deck is really just in service of setting this loop up. We have Ultra Balls, discard, just get any Pokemon you want. Discard 2 cards from your hand, get a Pokemon. Nest Ball, you play it, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, it goes directly to the bench. It is worth noting that Lumineon here, one, can attack. You can attack with Lumineon, so you can recycle its ability, Luminous Side. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to your bench, you may search your deck for a supporter and put it into your hand. Really, really nice. And then Aqua Return does 120 damage. Shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. This is great because if we have to use Lumineon more than once, we need to find Boss's Orders, but we already used our Lumineon to find an Irida. Now we can go ahead, attack with the Lumineon, especially into like a single prize, a Cramorant, a Comfey, a Curlia, something like that. Hit for the 120, potentially get a KO or just soften it up, and then remove what is otherwise a 2 prize liability from the field, shuffle it back into the deck, and then hey, next turn, those 3 energies that are attached to the Lumineon so we can attack, go back into the deck. Now we can use Chien Pao to search them out. So again, we're contributing to that loop and also allowing us to reuse our support Pokemon, which is really, really nice. What I was getting at though is that Nest Ball says it goes from the deck to the bench, and Lumineon has to go from the hand to the bench. So you can't use Nest Ball, get Lumineon, and then use the ability. You can technically get Lumineon with Nest Ball, but you just won't be able to use the Luminous Sign ability. We also have Hisuian Heavy Ball. We can look at our prizes, take one of basic Pokemon from our prizes, and swap it with Heavy Ball. It's just a nice way of getting our one of Lumineon, Greninja, Manaphy, whatever. Or maybe we just can't find a Chien Pao. Maybe we don't have an Ultra Ball or a Nest Ball in hand. We can go ahead and find a Chien Pao potentially with a Hisuian Heavy Ball. We also have 4 Battle VIP passes because we really want to establish a very explosive board state. And between things like the Suicune, if we go second, Lumineon, Radiant Greninja, we have 4 copies of Trekking Shoes so that we can look at the top card of our deck. If we don't like it, we can discard it and draw another card. So we have a lot of ways to kind of dig through the deck and be able to find these Battle VIP passes. If we are going second, we have the option for something like an Irida. Search your deck for a Water Pokemon and an item card. Reveal and put them into your hand. So we can go ahead, find like a Frigibax. We can go ahead and find like a Chien Pao, Radiant Greninja, whatever Water Pokemon we need. And then we can get our item card and go ahead and get Battle VIP Pass, which is really nice. Get 2 more basic Pokemon and really just start to fill out our bench. We have rare candies to go from Frigibax to Baxcalibur a little bit easier. It lets us, on our next turn, we play down a Frigibax. Next turn, Rare Candy, Baxcalibur. We can go ahead and Irida for both of those pieces. We can get Rare Candy and Baxcalibur with a single Irida. So really, really nice way of just kind of exploding and getting that Pokemon into play a little bit faster. We have some mobility options between Escape Ropes and Switch. We already talked about Trekking Shoes. We talked about recovery options. And then really it's just the rest is a couple of supporters, Boss's Orders. You want to knock something out, maybe you want to stall for a turn, you have Boss's Orders. We do have 3 copies of Iono. Each player shuffles the hand and puts it to the bottom of their deck, then draws a card for each of their remaining prizes. It's a brand new card. It's really, really powerful. We are running 3 and a Roxanne. And the reason why we're running Roxanne is because, let's say later in the game, we've already taken 4 prizes. We've taken 5 prizes. Our opponent has taken 4 prizes. Well, if I play Iono, both of us are going to shuffle our hands, put it to the bottom of the deck, and then we both only draw 2. But if I need something, if I need to find a rare candy, or I need to find an energy retrieval, later in the game, Iono, only seeing those 2 cards, maybe I can use Radiant Greninja, maybe, but, I don't want to risk it, and hope I hit an energy, hope I hit something. Especially if I'm super desperate for energy retrieval, I might not have many energies left in deck. So I don't want to risk having, only being able to draw 2 cards when I need to draw a few more and find a particular card. So that's where I still play the copy of Roxanne. I can only play Roxanne if my opponent has 3 or fewer prizes remaining. However, regardless of how many prizes I have, and as long as they have 3 or less, they're going to draw 2. and I'm going to draw 6. Now, we both shuffle our hands into our deck, so there's a chance that we'll seize the cards that were in our hand, but if we don't have a very big hand, there's not a lot of cards in deck, I don't know. Yeah, I still think it's kind of worth having one of Roxanne to force my opponent to only have 2 cards, and give me an opportunity to see a few more cards when I'm also low on prizes. So, something to keep in mind, something you don't really hear people talking about Iona. Sometimes you can shoot yourself in the foot a little bit, just because if you're both down to your last prize or 2, and maybe you really need a card to close out the game, you might whiff it off of something like an Iona. So, something to bear in mind. But yeah, that's really the deck. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is how this deck is doing. And because I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, should people be worried about this deck? Is it even worth playing? And here's a clue as to whether or not it is or isn't. So in Japan, there was a Champions League tournament, and for Master League, there were 2,748 participants, which is absolutely absurd. We have here the day 1 meta share for this tournament, and you can see Chien being at about 11%, 10.8 is pretty good as the 3rd most popular deck. But in terms of conversion, it went from, on day 1, 11% to day 2 being less than 5%. That is not a very high conversion. It's actually a little concerning. It's more than half of the percentage. That was crazy. 11 to less than 5. And one of the reasons for this might be a couple of things. One, people were really prepared for it. A lot of people were expecting something like Chien because it was really good, so they're prepared for it. Very, very possible. It's also very possible that because Chien is very new, the lists aren't ideal. They're not optimal yet. They're not very, I don't want to say they're not very good, but they could be better. Number 3, again, because it's new, maybe people aren't familiar with the best matchup plans. Maybe, something like Gardevoir is really, really popular in day 2 and had really good conversion. Maybe it just has a really bad matchup to Lugia or Gardevoir. Maybe it just, the people who played it weren't as prepared for some of those decks. Maybe they weren't, maybe they didn't test it. Maybe they don't know the lines of play just yet, or how to tech the deck against things that are really popular. There's a lot of reasons why it might not have done so well, but at the moment, it's not super good. Like, it's a really strong deck, and also do keep in mind in Japan, it is a best of 1 format, whereas something maybe like Chien maybe has the opportunity to brick a little bit more, because you can tell if you just have like a really garbage starting hand, you might not be able to work your way out of it. So it is very possible that in a best of 1 scenario, it could be something similar to Palkia, where in a best of 1, or Palkia is like one of those decks that it's gonna brick 1 out of every 3-ish games, but that's okay in a best of 3, because alright, fine, you lose one of those games because you brick, but you're probably gonna win the other 2 because it's just super strong, super fast, and very, very good. Chien might be something of that vein. Maybe it works really well with something like a Palkia. Maybe you need like a Vulpix in there to, help against something like the Gardevoir matchup. I don't know. And those are variations of the decks that I've seen. I have seen Chien lists with Alolan Vulpix V-Star, with Palkia V-Star. I've seen some with Bibarel just to help with that mid to late game draw, or maybe even early game draw, honestly, because again, one of the issues with this deck is that I could definitely see it not drawing very well all the time. So I've seen lists that have Pokegears to help find like your Ionos and your Iridas to help make things going. Some things to keep in mind as to whether or not you should play this deck, buy it, maybe wait a little after it comes out, kind of see how it's doing before you invest a bunch of money into, 3-4 Chien and the Excalibur line and all this kind of stuff. But these are honestly mostly cards that, if you don't have already, a lot of them are probably not going to be very expensive, like Super Rod and Superior Energy Retrieval, not going to be very expensive. Iono's probably going to be expensive, but you're going to want to get a full playset of that anyway, if not more than a full playset, so you're going to need those anyway. So really, it's just the Frigiback and Arctibax are going to be really cheap. The Excalibur is probably also going to be a relatively inexpensive card. So, the more I think about it, really all you're paying for is the Chien. So if you see it for a good price, and maybe you just pick it up just to have, because you probably have the rest of it anyway. But yeah, that's Chien Pao. I'm not super sold on it. I do think it's very good. I think there's definitely room for improvement for the deck, but only time will tell. So there you have it. Chien Pao, let me know your thoughts. Are you planning on playing Chien Pao? Is it something that you and your friends, or have you been seeing a lot of talk about it online? Have I just want to hear from you. I gotta stop talking. I'm so congested. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.